Welcome to Daily Devo. I'm Pat. Today we'll speak about our Father knows best. This month in our Daily Devos, we're looking at some character studies of people who were in the wilderness. These examples for you and me as we walk through those wilderness times in our lives. Well, this first week, we're looking at Jesus and his 40 days in the wilderness. Near the end of that time, when Jesus was exhausted and tired and hungry, his enemy, the devil, came at him with temptation. And by the way, isn't that the time our enemy loves to attack us? When we're exhausted and at the end of ourselves? Well, look what happens in Matthew chapter 4, verses 8 through 10. It says, "Next the devil took him to the peak of a very high mountain, showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their glory. 'I will give it all to you,' he said, 'if you will kneel down and worship me.' 'Get out of here, Satan,' Jesus told him. 'For the scripture says, you must worship the Lord your God and serve only him.'" Now, for the sake of time, we aren't going to discuss whether these things were really even Satan's to give to Jesus. He's offering him the kingdoms of the world. What I do want to focus on is that what he's offering Jesus is something that Jesus would eventually rightfully have. In Philippians chapter 2, it tells us that someday every knee will bow and every tongue confess that he is Lord. The Bible is full of reminders that Jesus' kingdom will one day be all-encompassing. Every corner of the universe will be his. So this temptation was essentially to get what would eventually be given to him before his Father was going to grant it to him. Now that sentence alone should mess with your mind. To keep this brief, let's just say that the temptation was this: bow to me and I will give you what you deserve, what is rightfully yours. Take control of the situation. That was the temptation. And haven't we all been there? I deserve this because this is rightfully mine because. And sometimes we're not wrong. But if we're not careful in these times, we may abdicate our trust and reliance on God and attempt to exert control. We'll try to take it out of God's hands and place it in our hands. We've never done that, have we? We've never subtly said, God doesn't seem to be moving fast enough, so I'm going to kind of get this thing moving along myself. We've never done that, have we? We'll look at Jesus' response again. First of all, the fact that Jesus is quoting scripture to combat temptation reminds me of something that one of my favorite preachers, Tony Evans, would say. He said about this passage of scripture, he said, "If the living word needed the written word to defeat the enemy of the word, how much more do we need the word?" Isn't that good? Except he's an African-American pastor, and so he said it way cooler than that. He said, if the living word needs the written word to defeat the enemy of the word, how much more do you and I need the word? Oh, that's so good. That's truth. Jesus, the living word, quoted the written word to remind his enemy, the enemy of the word, that he wasn't going to bow down to anyone other than his Father, that he wasn't going to do anything before his Father said it was time, that he wasn't going to exert control, that he wasn't going to try and wrestle it from his Father's hands and place it in his own hands. Jesus was saying, I trust my Father and I trust his timing, and I will worship and obey him and him alone. No doubt you and I have those times that we're so desperately wanting what might be rightfully ours. But the great danger in those times is that we quit trusting God for his timing and attempt to exert control and move it from his hands to ours. Here's my challenge for you and I. Leave it in his hands. Trust and obey him and him alone. Our Father knows best because he's a good, good Father.